Thanks, Pam.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Board's work session for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. Can we get a motion to open the work session, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the first thing that we have on our work session agenda this evening is an update from our friends at Newcastle United for Youth. And I see Lee Barth and Leslie Kuhn.
Great.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks
Ivy.
for coming.
Thanks for inviting us here tonight to give you a status report about Newcastle United for Youth. Lee Barth and I are here representing the Volunteer Steering Committee for NCUFY. For those who don't know who we are, we're a community coalition nearing the end of our 5th year of funding under the Federal Drug-Free Communities Grant Program. We work to empower youth in our community to make healthy choices, including about alcohol and other drugs, and to help parents and those in town who work with youth to support them. In these past 5 years, NCUFY has built a great team of participants representing all 12 of the required community sectors, including the schools, volunteer service groups like CVAC, the faith community, and more. For our time here tonight, we particularly wanted to highlight the town's role in making our organization successful. So by agreeing to serve as the coalition's fiscal agent, the town has provided the necessary structure and support for our coalition work. Jill Shapiro, who serves as the program director, and Tiffany White have been invaluable on the administrative side, and Rob Deary and James McHugh have ensured that our financial management is well documented and grant compliant. So we thank you all for that. Also from the town, the police department and the rec department have been key coalition partners. They've helped us to come up with and implement strategies to keep teens in our community safe and making healthy choices. Chief Carroll and Detective Watts regularly attend our coalition meetings and support our coalition work. Currently, we're working with the police on our annual end of year safety message that's put out jointly with CVAC and the fire departments. Brittany Nieder serves as the Recreation Department Liaison for NCUFY. We've been working with her this spring to support rec department programs and help spread the coalition message, particularly to middle schoolers. This coming Monday, NCUFY will be supporting an around the world basketball tournament. It was planned by Brittany and Doug Scott to take advantage of the new town basketball court and to encourage middle school participants to make healthy choices. NCUFY has also been providing some support for the town camp, including in the form of paying for part of the camp staff and CIT t-shirts, and is working with Brittany on scheduling a leadership and team building event for the CITs.
Yes.
Going forward, we hope to continue our work, particularly now as we start to emerge from the pandemic, which will make more things possible. Last month, we filed an application with the CDC for a competing continuation grant under the DFC program. If we're successful and we're awarded the grant would provide an additional $125,000 per year for years 6 through 10 to continue coalition work. In our application, we highlighted some of our current areas of focus and some of our future plans, which in addition to what I just spoke about, include work on youth mental health first aid and making sure that the coalition work recognizes the needs of and is accessible to all members of the Newcastle community. So Lee and I are here tonight to answer any questions you all might have about the work of the coalition or our future plans or anything else that's on your minds.
If you don't mind me just piping in. So Leslie, speaks about this, very matter-of-factly as if it's a mere bag of shells, but I can't begin to tell you what a Herculean effort pulling together the 12 community components were into a coalition and running with it and securing this grant and keeping it going for the past 5 years. Leslie and Lee, along with Victoria Goodman, have been tireless in this purely volunteer, unpaid position of just, shepherding this program through and growing it into the success that it is today. We are so lucky to have this dedicated group of volunteers who just don't talk the talk, but actually walk the walk and actually do the work that's required to bring such enriching programs to our community. And I can't thank you enough. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to work with you. And I'm really excited that you guys are sticking around for year 6. So yay.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah, thank you.
So Leslie, can you talk a little bit about the youth mental health first aid
Sure.
of the new grant? Are there pieces of this that are in place now in partnership with the police and first aid, or is this like a program that you're looking to grow? And what does that look like?
Let me try to help you understand what we're doing. So we've long recognized the connection between mental health and substance use. So we thought it was important, particularly given pandemic circumstances and the stress and pressures that our community youth are under regardless, to really take a look and make sure that people who work with youth are empowered to identify when kids might be struggling with mental health issues and to be able to help direct them to the resources that they need to get help. So we began this program in collaboration with the schools. Carolyn D'Agostino, who is the student assistance counselor at Greeley, was trained first as a youth mental health first aid trainer. And that was done in conjunction with student assistance with funding from another state grant. And we then, the coalition, provided the funding to train 2 additional school personnel as youth mental health first aid trainers. So now we have 3 trainers in our community, Carolyn plus Linda Ryan, who is the social worker at Greeley, and Kristen McGurl, who is health teacher. And they have spent the spring going through 3 rounds of training Greeley personnel in this. So far they've covered about 45 people. You can only do 15 people per session. And it's been really well received, and we're really pleased with the direction it's taking. So the next step is to scale this up and to identify other community coalition partners who work with youth who would be interested in participating in the training. We've certainly identified the police, the rec department, CVAC, some of our faith-based coalition members are also interested, and we're working on putting together a description of what the program is so that people can understand why they might be interested. We also think it could be relevant to some of the town recreation and sports leagues, to Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, really anyone who spends time working with kids. So does that help?
Yeah, it does. Definitely. That's really helpful. I'm wondering if, if you'll also be expanding that training into the middle schools.
That is definitely the hope. So we wanted to see, we were using the high school as a test case, but clearly our next step will be to move down to the middle schools, which is also our target population.
And I think Carolyn, I think the group at the they're currently at the high school are looking to create what they call through the school district a learning team, and that team would be open to any teachers or staff at any grade level. So hopefully it will start seeping down organically into those other levels in the school district. But it's a great example of, we have this coalition, but different community members and different sectors push the support for the kids through the program, but it starts to grow within each of those sectors. So, we support what the school is doing, and, we trained these other 2, and we'll support, whatever material needs they might need to keep this going. But it's kind of something that they run with, the way the rec department ran with their piece, which is over the last 5 years, what we were really proud to see, people starting to bring things to us, and we help support them rather than us calling everybody and saying, let's do it this way. But the youth mental health first aid is, you know, a really important part of this, to get more adults to recognize when kids are struggling.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm just curious now that we're going to be doing Community Day again. Giant brain, giant heart. What other like fun things are we going to wander through this year?
Well, nice that you asked. One of the things that we've been really successful in building is a nicely involved youth coalition group. And right now we're in the process of interviewing kids who applied to be part of our summer internship program. And they've been really terrific in helping us plan some of the bigger community events in the past. So that will be one of their focuses, to decide what they want to bring to the community on Community Day. And perhaps also to some of the schools as well, because we've been able to do that in the past. So we'll see what ideas they have for us. But the giant brain and the lungs were a lot of fun.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. That was when I first learned about you guys.
They bring the best things to Community Day. I mean, come on.
Yeah, who doesn't like giant lungs?
yeah, I think
Leslie and Lee, you know, one of the things that this town board is going to has before us this year, that we will ultimately need to be making a decision on, of course, is what the town intends to do with regard to the marijuana law that passed at the state level, right? And so we've had some discussion already as a town board with regard to whether we want to permit dispensaries within the town of Newcastle, or if we want to opt out of the ability to do so, and to take in that tax that would come with that. So as I said, we've had a couple of discussions. We're right now sort of in a little bit of a holding pattern where we're waiting for the kind of final regulations to be sent to us by the state, and then we'll be having kind of a series of public conversations around that. I'm just curious whether that's the kind of thing that Newcastle United for Youth would be weighing in on, or would feel comfortable providing some policy guidance to the town around.
I think, you know, what we like to do is to support the town and its decision making. So one of the things we did recently was to help co-sponsor a forum for town boards such as yourselves to be armed with the information they need to make a decision, and we'll be providing you all with the links to those presentations. You know, one of the nice things for the town is that you really were ahead of the game in terms of considering and enacting and including marijuana shops in your vaping zoning rules. So we've always been really proud of that here in our town, that you've been proactive. And we want to continue to support you as you make these important decisions.
Great. Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, that's switching. Yeah. So yeah, we don't want to take up any. We know you guys are really busy, and we appreciate all the work you guys do for everything you do in town. So, you know, if you're ever curious about what we're doing or have ideas, we're always looking to collaborate and to continue to broaden the outreach of the coalition. And we're crossing our fingers that we get the grant, and we won't know till August. So we're hoping to continue the work, and but we don't want to take up your time because we know you guys have long nights.
Right. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for that presentation, and thank you also for mentioning all of the town hall staff who you've been working with. It was really a gracious event.
Well, and Lauren did a lot of work with us before Tiffany, so she should get a shout out, even though it's no longer her role. But she did spend a lot of time in our meetings and getting papers signed and pulled together and everything. So we really appreciate everyone in town hall.
Lauren's a Tiffin. Lauren is an honorary member.
Absolutely.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you guys.
Good night.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda this evening is a discussion of the resolution making a determination and finding under the eminent domain procedure law regarding proposed acquisition of real property for the extension of the town's DPW highway and garage facilities. We've got Bart Carey, our Commissioner of Public Works. Nick is here. I'm going to turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you, Jill. So in the board's packet, starting on page 4, I believe it is a copy of a proposed resolution along with a number of exhibits A through F that are supporting documents for the town's proposed eminent domain proceeding concerning a real property at 220-230 Joan Corwin Way. The town board has held 2 public hearings, received comments from the public, and now under the law, within 90 days after the close of that public hearing, the town board has to make a determination that the proposed acquisition does, under the eminent domain procedure law, EDPL for short, serve a public purpose. And I want to just pause briefly for a moment and just emphasize that we've had discussions with the property owner for at least 18 months before we started these proceedings. We continue to have discussions. They've recently retained new counsel, and we're trying to coordinate an inspection date with them. So while one thinks of eminent domain, we are having discussions on the side, and they recognize, the property owner and their attorney recognize that we're proceeding under the law and we're on a parallel path with respect to discussions and hoping that we can find common ground. And like most eminent domain proceedings, I think the real discussion is not whether we're using it for a public purpose. Hard to argue that when we're proposing to expand the DPW and recycling yards to a property that is in between the two, that we're not using it for a public purpose. And you saw that borne out by Mr. Carey's testimony and the reports that were before you. So the real question is one of valuation, which is typical in these proceedings. So the only action we're asking that you take tonight is not a question on valuation. It's not to actually start the proceeding to condemn the property, but it's to make that initial first step that you've reviewed, you've heard from the public, you've heard from staff, you've reviewed the reports, and tonight you'll be making a determination under the State Environmental Quality Review Act that the acquisition of this land will not have a significant adverse environmental impact, and also that the acquisition of this land is, as I summarized, for public use. And the resolution contains the criteria that the law states that the board has to examine. The next step after this would be within 3 years, we have to actually then go to court and ask a judge to give the town title to the property. And that is the next step, and you have 3 years to do that after the filing and adoption of this resolution. There are some procedural steps about giving notice and publishing in the newspaper, and we'll work with the town clerk on it. So this is just a preliminary step that sets the framework for the actual conveyance of a property by a court to the town. And then there would be yet a third step, which is a separate proceeding. If we can't reach an agreement on valuation, there would be a court proceeding that would discuss and resolve any dispute about the price, the value of the property. So before I go into detail on the resolution that's before the board, is there any questions about the process? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to the resolution, and I'll just summarize it because it's in your packet, and please interrupt me if you have questions. The first 2 pages set forth the whereas. It sets forth that you followed the procedure. You've provided notice to the public. You provided notice to the property owner. We have a copy of the letter we sent Mr. Lucchese, who is a representative of the estate. We have publication in the Journal News that you complied with the notice requirements. We have the public use report that Commissioner Carey from the DPW put together. And you may also recall there was a supplemental report in response to comments from the property owner about, well, could you actually do your proposed use on existing town property? Commissioner Carey went through and provided a detailed explanation as to, while it may look that way on paper, once you look at the topography, the wetlands, and the other constraints of the property, that's not feasible. Further demonstrating and establishing that this is a public use with respect to the acquisition of the property. And Mr. Carey's report also detailed the limitations on the current property with respect to the size of the trucks, how they can't fit into the existing facilities, and also the cost of not having indoor storage for some of the trucks, the cost for having to have inefficiencies in the operations. And that was all detailed in the report. On pages 2 and 3, we talk about what the requirements under secret are. And then on page 4 is the actual negative declaration itself. Under secret, you have to make a determination, will this project have a significant adverse impact to the environment? We've gone through all the factors to summarize. The answer is no. It's an light industrial use area. It's in between a DPW yard and a recycling yard. It's not much change. There's no change in the use. It's being used as a pole barn for storage. It's going to be continued to be used that way. The cell tower in the back of the property is not changing. So it's really maintaining the status quo. So the fact that you reach a negative declaration that there won't be any significant adverse environmental impact from the town taking this property just flows logically, and you have all the support, and you've heard the testimony that supports that, and you know that from your own understanding and from being familiar with the property. Turning to page 5, we then look at what the standards are. Under the eminent domain procedure law, you have to make certain findings. And in these 4 enumerated paragraphs, we've gone through and set forth what those findings are. That concludes that the property is an appropriate location for the proposed use, that the general effect of the proposed action on the environment is negligible. It won't require new construction. The demolition of the existing dilapidated structures will improve the surrounding environment, and the current use will remain the same. You've also considered other factors raised by residents, such as could you build on your own property? So we feel, and I believe you do as well, I've had discussions with you, that the record before you establishes that you are well within your rights and acting according to the law with respect to making this determination, adopting this resolution tonight, that the condemnation of 220-230 Joan Corwin Way is for an appropriate public use and consistent with the eminent domain proceeding law. So that's my very lengthy explanation of the resolution before the board.
One quick clarifying question. Nick, I heard you say something in your explanation just now that I wasn't familiar with regard to the demolition of buildings on the property. I thought we were maintaining the buildings on the property, and that was in fact part of the reason that we wanted to acquire this property. Is there another building on the property that we're planning on demolishing?
There
Yes.
is. I'm going to try and share my screen. If you look, assuming I've got the right screen up, are you seeing the parcel access or the survey?
Survey.
Survey, great. So if you see there's an extra 1-story frame building. If I can get my cursor over there, around this area.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Yep, so that's a dilapidated house in poor condition that will be demolished. The main barn itself and the garage is over here. You're correct, Ivy. That is not being removed. That will remain. The cell tower at the top will remain. It's just the small frame shed and a 1-story frame building that if we wait another 6 months, it might fall down itself. But
Yep. Okay. Sorry. As soon as you said that, it triggered for me that we've discussed this. So I apologize.
Well,
no
it's been a
worries.
while.
I love talking about plans in this one. I'm good. So if there are no other comments, then this would be appropriate for the board to take action tonight and adopt this resolution.
Okay. Terrific. I see that we've got RJ. So should Bart stay with us through the remainder of the meeting?
I don't think so. And if a question comes up during public comment, I can certainly text Bart, but I don't, full due respect, I don't think we need to use up his time.
Yeah, I know he had an earlier start today than most of us here, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna let him go. Okay, Bart, thank you so much.
I think my other question is probably for Jill, because I feel like we had some assessment questions to determine what the price of the property that we'll be pursuing. We made progress on that. I felt like we needed a new assessment or a new.
We were going to have a new appraisal done,
Yeah.
and there's been difficulty in coordinating that, and I'm hoping we'll get that done in the next week or 10 days.
Thank you.
And that's separate and apart from this, but we will update the board with respect to the appraisal and the valuation of it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bart. Appreciate it. We've got RJ, and Sabrina's going to join us in just a moment, but while we're waiting for her to sign on, RJ, do you want to take and just walk us through our the cybersecurity renewal policy?
Certainly, certainly. Good evening, everybody. Back in June 11, 2018, the town started their very first cyber liability policy and has maintained it since. The policy is due to come up for renewal again on June 11, 2021, a couple of days from now. Just a very brief overview on cyber liability. It's one of the newest coverages that's out there. I guess the item you would see most in the news is the extortion, that there's hacks in. That's one of the key coverages, but it's about one of 15 coverages under this policy. That's the most common, famous one. Just to recap briefly, a hacker makes a demand that they have either locked up a entity's computer system or has been logged in to the computer system for quite some time. And unless an demand is released, sensitive emails would be released to employees and the public. So any type of extortion is the most common one. That's one of the key coverages under this. Very broad view. A cyber liability policy is kind of like your automobile policy. It covers two things. It covers physical damage to your car, like if it gets stolen. Nobody sues you, but it just got stolen or vandalized. And the second part of your auto policy is if somebody does sue you, there's an accident. Same thing on the cyber liability, which is like on the extortion side, nobody's suing the town, but the policy would respond. Second thing would be if somebody was suing. If we had a municipality in Westchester about 6 years ago, the town comptroller released by mistake all of the social security numbers of retired employees, their home addresses, all the sent date of birth, everything. And there was some lawsuits that came from that. And the cyber liability policy responds. So in the broad scope, it covers those two things. The town's current policy is with Ace Chubb Insurance Company. As I mentioned, it comes up June 11th, 2018. We saw proposals from different insurance companies. First was the current insurance company, Ace. Ace Chubb had some high claims losses in cyber liability for municipalities. And they offered a quote that was double in premium. Instead of the town's paying $9,900 now, they offered an essentially $18,000 and increased the retention from $15,000 to $100,000. So immediately we knew, they didn't want this policy. They didn't want to continue. It had nothing to do with the town other than it was a municipality. So we went to other insurance companies to get a quote. We negotiated a very good quote with the company called HDI Specialty. The three big items, essentially it's the same to what you have now, but there's three big improvements. One is in premium. The town's currently paying $9,900 in premium. And this HDI insurance company was able to negotiate down to $8,800. So an $1,100 savings. Two, the current retention or deductible that the town would pay for a claim is $15,000. Under the new HDI policy, it goes from $15,000 down to $10,000. So if there's a claim, we would automatically save $5,000. Two other items, the computer fraud limit is higher. Currently now it's a $100,000 limit under ACE, and under HDI it would be $1 million. And the last item, which was of significance of an improvement, is social engineering fraud. And I'll talk about that in a second. Currently you have a $100,000 limit, and under the HDI proposed would be a $1 million limit. Very briefly describe social engineering, which is a poor name the industry gave it. Think of it as trickery insurance. So a town comptroller gets an email from the mayor or supervisor to wire funds to a new law firm, or and getting in writing, the town comptroller does it. Turns out that he was tricked into it, that somebody hacked into the computer and went ahead and changed, provided false information, so the town voluntarily released the money, the funds. There's other examples of the social engineering, but it's very common in terms of having claims against that type of coverage. That also is included in this cyber liability, and it has a $1 million limit, whereas before the town only had a $100,000 limit. Let me take a breath. The only thing I would say in terms of a negative, which is a minor one, is the insurance company we have now, which is Chubb Ace Insurance Company, is an admitted insurance company. As an admitted insurance company, if Chubb Ace went bankrupt, the New York State would come in and pay a town claim. With the new insurance company, HDI, it's a non-admitted insurance company, meaning they're licensed to write policies in New York State. But if HDI Insurance Company goes bankrupt, New York State would not come in to pay a claim. That's the biggest difference. I'm not overly concerned because when I looked at the AM Best rating, which is an independent rating agency of insurance companies, HDI was an A+ rated company. So I found comfort in that. Now let me take a breath. Any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, you raised your hand.
On this last point, is there an option? So how long is this contract for? How long is
1 year?
1 year. Okay. So, all right. So then we would reevaluate their financial position when we considered renewing the policy.
Correct.
I just wasn't sure if it was like a long-term.
No. Almost all property casualty policies are 1 year. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then I guess my other question is there, in their establishment of our rates, do they do an audit of our safety, infrastructure?
They do a couple things. The primary rating is revenues. So that's a key. They'll also do a scan assessment, and they also have a short meaning like 4 or 5 question application. The insurance industry is still trying to wrap their minds around how to properly underwrite this, because unlike other types of insurance, like property insurance has been around for 200 years, this is a fast-moving, changing industry, this particular coverage. So those are some of the key components when it comes to premium rating.
And I'm imagining that a resident, might be a little less interested in how the town is financially protected against a fraud event and more interested in how the town prevents a fraud event or acquisition of our
yes.
private data and all of the vulnerabilities that residents might be exposed to if they were a breach.
Yeah. Many of the experts, in essence, says that the security is very important for any entity, the cybersecurity, but just about any entity eventually could be hacked into. So when you hear the FBI got hacked into, or the US government or Google got hacked into, I'd like to think that if something bad does happen, there's insurance to fall back on, so there's not a financial impact to the town.
Right, which I guess could flow through to the residents if the town was being sued as a consequence of a loss to a resident.
Yeah, or even if you weren't sued, like as an extortion, no one would sue, but the amounts that the hackers could ask for normally is between $200,000, could be up to $1 million. And the city of Atlanta got hacked, and they fought it for 6-7 days before they eventually paid. So is this
sorry, I'm still
no,
handle it. So is this really centered around that kind of vulnerability, a ransom type vulnerability, or is it ransom plus actual tangible damage and loss as a consequence of a hacking event?
Both. Okay. So extortion, if the hack caused damage to the town's server, it would pay for reimbursement for that. Business income. One of the problems with the city of Atlanta was with all computers shut down, the court couldn't go. There was a financial loss to the city of Atlanta. Some of the revenue sources, they would also cover loss of business income the town of Newcastle had over an event like this. So there's many coverages, but I, in my opinion, the extortion is one of the most common coverages to be triggered under this on the cyber liability policy.
Okay, cool. Jill, do you think that there's a way for the town to kind of, I don't know, offer some kind of communication to the community about
Again, for me,
security, about our security measures? I know that we can't like say, hey, these are our security measures, because we don't want to expose that. But I'm wondering what we might be able to offer to give people some reassurance that that we have a, let's say, healthy security infrastructure.
I don't think there is reassurance anymore. You see the Defense Department getting hacked, and I think unfortunately this insurance has become non-negotiable anymore. Everybody has to have this. Every company has to have this. Every government has to have it, unfortunately. I'm sure our security, as good as it may be, is not the same as the NSA who's getting hacked. So I mean, we can tell people, but I don't know that that's necessarily stopping anything or necessarily going to give anybody any peace of mind, because unfortunately this can happen and does very often.
I'm not arguing against the suitability of the insurance. I'm asking, can we review for our residents some summary of measures and awareness of the town to protect our residents?
Right. So as we obviously take our security very seriously. Rob, can you offer some comment on this?
I did. I can respond to a couple of things for Lori. One, RJ, thank you. And I think that, that's a nominal fee for this type of protection. So, I definitely think it's necessary. Lori, I'll tell you a couple of things. Number one, as far as protecting our residents, we really don't store any personal information from residents. You look at our emailing list, these are a third-party vendor. You look at all of our credit card vendors and those types of things, that information is not stored on site. Those are all through third-party vendors. So when you make a tax payment online, when you make a recreation program payment online, we don't have any of that in here. So, I would believe that would kind of insulate us, number one, from the liability, but those companies have the security and again, anybody, if the FBI can be hacked, anybody can be hacked. But as far as the town releasing that information, that there aren't many opportunities for that to happen. Number two, a couple of the security measures that we do take. Number one, on an annual basis, all of our employees go through training that kind of, as RJ was explaining, the social engineering, the phishing expeditions, they kind of give us examples of what kind of emails, what to look for, how to understand if something might be fraudulent. And, the example RJ gave is great. I've probably, in the last 5 years, received 3 or 4 of those emails from, Rob Greenstein. Hey, Rob, I'm working on a project. If there's any way you can just email me or wire me $50,000 right away, that would be great. It's like, oh, okay, Rob, sure, we'll get on that. So, we do put our employees through that training. Another thing, and not really disclosing any state secrets, but we have a triple redundancy in our backup for our servers. So that information is stored. We have a server on site that we make a tape copy of once a week, and then the information is backed up multiple times throughout the day, and it's stored both at Sullivan, now they're Logically, formerly Sullivan Data's facility in New York, and they also have an offsite copy down in Texas that they store it. So were we to have any of these extortion demands, typically what they would do is just be able to rebuild our server from scratch using one of these backups. We typically wouldn't lose very much information. I watch the news too. I see that, these are becoming more and more sophisticated. Jill and I have a meeting with Ron Hubert from Logically scheduled in the next couple of weeks to kind of go over security concerns, but just those are a couple things that we have in place. Just hopefully that puts your mind at ease a little bit.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I suppose the other example that's a little different from some of the ransom one is the water, is the water hack in Florida, and and our measures to protect our own water from a cyber assault.
Yes, so the water treatment plant has, they're covered by all the same protections that we have at Town Hall. Logically, has all the security there. So, again, we can probably have Ron or a representative from Logically maybe at one point come and update the board. I know that Glenn Sullivan, the owner of Sullivan Data, retired at the end of last year. They kind of transitioned to Logically, which all the same players are there, which is great. We still have the personalized service, but they're now kind of a larger company. And I think our contract is up for renewal. So I imagine we can have a representative there, maybe kind of meet with the board and address any of their concerns.
Great. Thank you very much.
I actually have a really mundane question. Can you just tell me what is the non-panel response provider?
Yeah, it's if you think of health insurance, you have in-network and out-of-network. So in essence, what the in-network is the cyber incident response team. So the insurance companies have a panel of approved response teams. So if there is a break, you can choose from one of the approved. The non-panel would be if the municipality had their own entity that they wanted to utilize in case a hack occurred. So in this particular case, HDI Specialty doesn't give the option to policyholders to choose their own. It would come from an extensive list of those that they've approved.
And RJ, do we get to choose from that panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we could do is I can get that list because it's a good idea to kind of look at before there's an incident. So that's my suggestion. I could send a list to whoever you think that's appropriate at the town to choose it, because we had one municipality that was on a Saturday they got hacked. And these response teams, they work 7 days a week. It's not Monday to Friday. So yes, I can certainly get the response panelist for you.
Okay, that's good. And can you also, the wrongful collection exclusion, the others say they're limited to unintentional collection, and this new one says none. So
yes.
What is that?
That's actually, it's a benefit. And it's funny because you asked some of the similar questions that Jill asked. So thank you, Jill, for working. If an entity collects information, sensitive information, credit card, age, things like that, sells it or wrongfully stores it and gets sued, then in those other the current coverage, there's no coverage. The new insurance company, there is no exclusion for wrongful collection. I didn't see it as applicable to this town because you don't sell.
We don't store.
Yeah, store or sell information to third sources for information you collect.
We don't collect. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Jill and I went over the questions. We want to see if we had to bring you or not.
Yeah, listen, I'm pleased to always join the town.
All right, and then just to reiterate again, because I know this insurance has gotten very popular and very expensive. So when I saw our premium go down, it actually got me a little worried. I mean, I'm usually happy to save money, but in this situation, I just know that they've gone up so much. So I just want to make sure that you are, 100% comfortable with this company and with the insurance that they're providing.
Yeah, I am. It's a company that I researched. They do specialize in cyber liability. It's an A+ rated company. The limits, the deductibles, It's an improvement over what we have. So yeah, I am comfortable.
Okay.
Thanks so much, RJ. We so
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you coming.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Am I dismissed, or do you need me any further?
I think he's dismissed. What do you guys think? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Okay.
much.
Very good.
Take care. We've got Sabrina with us. Sabrina? There you are. So Sabrina is going to speak with us tonight. We've got a late edition, authorization to set a public hearing for Westchester County Consortium Community Development Block Grant application for the fiscal year 2022 to 2024. Sabrina, can you talk to us a little bit about this?
So sure. So again, sorry about the late addition with this. Newcastle is a member of the Westchester County Consortium, and we're a relatively new member, which enables us to apply for funding in certain categories: low and moderate income, area-wide benefits, senior for senior projects. So there's a whole slew of projects that we can apply for that we could potentially receive community development block grant funding. And this funding, I believe, requires community match, yet to be determined. But one of the things that we had been talking about that seems very feasible to be funded is rehabilitation of the bathrooms in town hall, specifically for severely disabled adults, people with visual impairments, and for seniors. And in thinking about town hall and how it's set up with all of the businesses, offices on the second floor, with the police and recreation on the first floor, there's really no ADA accessible bathrooms on the main floor where most of the business office occurs, where the assembly hall is, where court is held. So in speaking with the county, the representatives that work under the Community Development Block Grant Program, they truly felt that we had an opportunity to submit for monies to rehabilitate the bathrooms in town hall. So I quickly wrote a memo for you, kind of explaining all of this, and attached to that memo is a survey. One of the things we would be required to do is document the population that comes into town hall, and both document their race as well as their income. It's a standard survey. There's no private information we're collecting. It is all just filling in boxes, checking off different categories. It's a one page, maybe. I think there's 5 questions on there, but to just try and capture the audience who comes into town hall, the audience who uses the playground at town hall, and now the basketball court. And so part of the process to access this money and be eligible for this money is that the town board would hold a public hearing and ask the community what projects do they want to see occur in the community? And then you would talk about the project that I just mentioned to you regarding the rehabilitation of the bathrooms. And then after the public hearing, the town board would choose a project and pass a resolution in support of that project. The community development block grant applications are due June 25th. It's a quick turnaround time. The county was very much wanted us to submit, even though our surveying isn't complete, even though we don't have a solid cost estimate, we will be submitting a generalized cost estimate for this work. But they said that if we submit the application, even if we are denied this fiscal year, they can reinstitute the application for next year or the next cycle. But it's important to get the application into the process this year. So that's why we are moving quickly to try and get this done. I don't know, Jill, is there anything that I'm leaving out or?
No, Lisa had just raised the question as to whether or not like the bathrooms at Chapac might be eligible for an upgrade, based upon their age. And I'm sure when they were built, that was the handicap accessibility. But the question is, 35 years later, does it still meet ADA requirements?
Well, and
absolutely.
And Sabrina, to your point, we do programming there, many for, autistic children, and there are many
Sure.
seniors are coming. So, it may comply as well.
So we can submit as many applications as we want. There's no limit to the number of applications. The range that seems the most likely to be funded is $250,000, but we can submit projects up to $1 million. So, if we wanted to survey, for example, the users at ChatPack and collect the data, we can absolutely do that. Unfortunately, it's not about whether or not people who are disabled are using the facility. It is about, who is using the facility, what is their income, can we classify as low, moderate income people coming to that facility, and what is their race? Or their age, their race, kind of all of that factors in. We are in a highly likely to be funded situation because of the setup at Town Hall right now. There's the logistical setup. ChatPack may also be a high candidate. So, we can absolutely look at ChatPack, but when it comes to the actual challenges for severely disabled people, the Town Hall really rates very highly because given the daisy chaining in the women's bathroom, the location and the narrowness of the men's bathroom in Town Hall, it is very, very difficult for disabled access. And along with that, it is my intention to use water conservation fixtures, do LED lighting, and really hit on some of our climate smart community requirements and kind of double dip in that vein. So, part of the grant that we are submitting will be for design services from a professional architect who's familiar with ADA requirements and conservation requirements, so that we can really maximize the benefit of undertaking this improvement project at Town Hall. Does anyone else have questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment, which is that I'm really glad that this board made the decision to join the county coalition, and that we're potentially able to access all of this funding. And I think you selected a great project, one that is going to be much appreciated by those of us who use the Town Hall bathrooms, as well as by the public. And so I commend you for the quick work on this. And I pat ourselves on the back for making the choice to join the coalition. So thank you, Sabrina.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I'm glad that we joined the consortium also. And if we can get some benefit for the community, I think it's a home run. So I'm working diligently to meet the deadlines. And I asked that, I think we were talking about setting the public hearing for June 22nd. So if you guys could do that. And then I will follow through and provide you with a copy of the grant application in anticipation of the public hearing, as well as the sample resolution, so that you'll have all that information to review prior to that public hearing.
Okay, that'd be great. So Lauren, can you mark that down on our calendar, our collective calendars, Tiffany? Lauren, okay, the 22nd? Great. All right.
Okay.
We're good.
Any other
Thank you so much,
questions or
Sabrina.
anything? All right, everyone have a good night. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks so much. Okay. The next thing we've got on our agenda is authorization to approve the noise permit. This is for Mount Kisco Country Club. They've got the couple of summer events. So they asked for those noise, a waiver of the noise ordinance for their 4th of July. Let's see if I can find the page. Okay. I knew I shouldn't have taken my packet apart.
I thought it was something for next weekend. I feel like it was like 5 of them.
Right. They have their summer events. They do concerts, and they do 4th of July. I'm sorry. Lauren, do you know what page it's on off the top of your head?
It's on page 121 of the 137-page packet. You just didn't get there yet. So it was Saturday, June 12th from 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Thank you.
Saturday, June 19th until 10 p.m. Sunday, July 4th until 9:30 p.m. and Saturday, September 4th until 11 p.m.
Yes, what Nick said. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
I've got to put the page numbers back on these things when I take this apart. My bad. I apologize. Anyhow, anyone have any comments on this?
Just, is it consistent with requests they've made in previous years for similar timeframes?
Yes, and they notify the neighbors, so the neighbors are aware as well. So it's not just a notification to us, it's a notification to the entire neighborhood. Lawrence Farms South has a very good email chain with their residents. So the Country Club has been really, really good about notifying neighbors. So it's been tremendously helpful.
Great.
Okay. So that's we just have some administrative items real quickly to go through. Payment of claims, adoption of monthly minutes. There's an adoption of minutes for June 1. That's a revised set of minutes. Authorization to extend the contract for tree removal, pruning, vertical mulching, and stump with Olmsted Tree. Also to extend our contract with O'Connor Davies, our auditors. Authorization to award the chemical treatment bids from the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. That was just added. The 2 tax certiorari's that we discussed. Nick, do we need to discuss them in detail or just
Well,
talk about the?
they are in the packet, and when we go for a resolution, I can certainly summarize them. But they are
Okay. Right, it's for matter of Bernard and gonna have trouble with the other one. I'm sorry. Matter of Masalea International Ltd. And they both involve refunds of town taxes to residents. Last is the authorization to renew the cyber policy that we've just discussed about. And last but not least is the authorization to approve the tent rental from DPW for summer camp.
Jill, we also added the community day.
Oh, I'm sorry. And finally, we have received a formal request for Community Day for Saturday, the 18th of September.
And that doesn't conflict with homecoming or anything else we checked, or they checked?
You know, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We don't, we hope it doesn't, but we don't not give permission on the basis of that. We try to encourage them not to do it on those days because
Well, right.
it really
If we
affects their
knew it
attendance.
was, we might suggest that it not be on that
Yeah.
day. Okay.
Okay. And that's it for our work session, and we ready to move into our town board meeting at any time.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the town board meeting for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. The first item on the agenda this evening is the supervisor's report. As I have in weeks past, I will hold the majority of my items for publication in the town hall e-newsletter. The one item that I wanted to mention this evening that will also be in the newsletter tomorrow is just with regard to the upcoming June 22nd Democratic primary. I know it's something I don't need to remind any of my colleagues on the town board about, but for those who might be watching at home, all registered Democrats are hereby advised that there is an upcoming Democratic primary. The date of the primary election is June 22nd. However, early voting starts this weekend on Saturday, June 12th, and runs through Sunday, June 20th. And you can find information about the dates and times that you can go early vote, as well as the locations throughout the county where you can go for early voting. Newcastle residents are welcome to vote at any early voting location, so you don't have to go to the one that's closest to you. The one that's closest for many of us happens to be in Mount Kisco at the Memorial Complex at Leonard Park. sort of over where their swimming pool is, for those of you who are familiar with it. There isn't one that's specifically within Newcastle, but as I said, you can go to any of them. So if you find yourself in White Plains or in Yonkers, and you want to take care of your early voting, you are welcome to avail yourself of that. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is with regard to the date of the primary itself, which is on June 22nd. Voting locations have changed. For many people who used to vote or who traditionally vote in the Chappaqua Central School District elementary schools, those locations have shifted, and many of them are now at Forest City High School. I won't try to tell you where all 16 districts are voting. I would just encourage you to visit the Board of Elections, Westchester County Board of Elections website. So again, anyone who is a registered Democrat in the town of Newcastle, there is an upcoming primary, and I encourage everyone to make a plan to vote. And for all other supervisor report items, as I mentioned, I will hold them for the newsletter, which will come out tomorrow. I did just want to call on Councilmember Lisa Katz to talk to us about the Anti-Semitism Resolution that she's going to be introducing tonight, as well as a rally that she is organizing for this weekend. Lisa?
Thank you. So we are organizing a rally united against hate from the town. Newcastle Stands Against Anti-Semitism for this Sunday, June 13th, from 5:30 to 6:30 at the Newcastle Holocaust Memorial, which is adjacent to the gazebo on South Greeley Avenue. We will have featured speakers, and I think it'll be a nice evening where we really rally against those of the Jewish faith from all the anti-Semitism that has increased significantly in this country recently. We are also going to be reading tonight, or I'll be reading tonight, a resolution where we are adopting the, I'm just looking at it, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism that has been adopted recently by our government, by the United, our State Department, by our Board of Education. And I think that it's really important to make sure that we kind of fight bigotry in whatever form it is, wherever we find it. So I'd like to invite everyone to that rally, and I hope you can all attend.
Sorry, I was having some trouble with my cursor. I couldn't unmute myself. Do any of the other town board members have any announcements? Okay. Then I'll kick it over to Jill Shapiro, our town administrator. Any items for the administrator's report this week?
I'm just going to remind people about the ribbon cutting of the Millwood Park on Friday the 11th at 7:45. We are so excited to have completed this project on time, under budget, and during a pandemic. And we're so excited to watch the kids play under the lights. So I hope everybody will join us, or at least take advantage along the way. That, and just a reminder that two-way traffic has been established on Pine Bridge Road at the back of Town Hall, the rear parking lot, the southernmost commuter parking lot, onto Washington Avenue. There is a large variable signboard there alerting people to two-way traffic so that they're not surprised. The police have been making regular patrols out there. And it's an experiment. We're going to try it. DPW did a fabulous job marking everything. So it really makes an impression when you drive out there. You definitely notice it, but people should be on the alert that there's definitely a change in traffic pattern, and just be aware of it.
Hey, Jill, to that, can we just make sure during the farmer's market, there were no police officers there? I did notify them, so they came afterward. But there were a number of near miss accidents because it was really the first farmer's market after we, adopted that new change. And everyone was arguably, confused about if they should be driving in or driving out, if it's one way or two way. So at least for the farmer's market, this Saturday, if we can make sure to remind the chief to get someone there just to direct traffic.
Okie dokie. I will ask him about that. And just a shout out to everybody who participated in the Memorial Day ceremony. It was definitely a low-key event compared to our parades in past years, but it was so nice to have an in-person ceremony, and it was lovely nonetheless and very touching. And despite the weather being very iffy, it was really nice to see a crowd out there. So thanks everybody for making it so special. And we'll see everybody next year at the parade. So yay for that. And everything else I'll just put in the newsletter. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Okay, so we've come to the portion of our meeting that's dedicated to public comment. So if we have anyone in the audience this evening who would like to ask a question or make a public comment, please feel free to raise your digital hand and we can bring you into the meeting. And I see that we have one hand already raised. Pam, if you can bring William Bierce into the conversation, please.
Yes, Mr. Bierce, please unmute yourself.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm here to talk about the noise pollution. We've just adopted after 2 years a gas blower, a noise prohibition on between June 1st and September 30th. And I have a problem because we have beep, beep, beep on garbage trucks that come by my neighborhood between Annandale and Cowden. And Cowden and Kittle in the morning between roughly 6 o'clock or 6:30. Now there are two operations going on. One could be at the school, really. We can't find out who those people are because they show up, disappear real fast, but they wake us up. And the second one is all along Cowden Lane, SAC on a private basis, because I believe that that's not a town pickup because it's a private road.
No.
May be doing this so that they can get ahead of their other operations, but they're still waking us up, and we have our windows closed. It's not like we're trying to listen. So I have submitted to you, the board, a proposed ordinance which would mimic to a certain degree Briarcliff Manor and Mount Kisco, each of which has a similar garbage truck problem. So invite your questions, but I think it's something that should, if we're concerned about leaf blowers, we should be more concerned about sleep and family life. Thank you.
So thank you for that comment. You know, I'm actually glad you showed up here because you're saving me an email. You were on my list of emails that I was going to be sending after this meeting. So we did receive your comments and your recommendations with regard to changes to our noise resolution. So thank you. They were really thoughtful and well researched. What I would like to do is we are going to provide your research to our town council and ask them to take a look at kind of what is in our current town code, as well as take a look at the examples that you cited and give us some feedback on that. And we're also simultaneously going to do a little bit of research to try to figure out the source of the noise that you're hearing. And so thank you for the clarification about the two sources. So, you know, we suspect that it's not the town of Newcastle or our contractor, Santa Pro, but that rather it's coming from a private contractor. So we're going to try to get to the bottom of that at the same time as well. So again, thank you for the research that you did, and thank you for coming here and giving us this feedback at our meeting as well. We have some follow-up items to do, and then we'll be back in touch with you about that.
Thank you so much. No email, no worries about the email. Thank you. I'll get off now.
It's so much faster to just say this. Rather.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay.
Thanks.
Gotcha.
Thank you for reaching out.
So seeing no other hands raised, I'll check in with Pam. Pam, did you? Oh, I see one.
One more person. Cynthia Moses, please unmute yourself.
Cynthia, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Still muted.
Yeah, Cynthia, you remuted yourself. Try to unmute again.
That looks good.
That shows that I'm mute now. What is it? No.
You're good.
No, we hear you. Oh.
Now you went back on mute.
Now you hear me?
Now we hear you.
Okay, that's odd. Okay, I'm having tech problems. I'm so sorry. Hi.
Oh.
I am checking back in, Cynthia Moses from 100 Glendale Road, to find out, because I haven't gotten a response from Mr. Ward Willis about my questions from a few weeks ago having to do with permitting of my next door neighbor and, following procedure for public hearing versus automatic extensions for steep slope permitting. And since then, it seems that their construction permit had lapsed for 10 days or so before the zoning board. So they were in full construction, but no permit. And then the zoning board extended their construction permit. So I'm just wondering, I appreciate that Mr. Scioli went by and double checked what was going on, but I haven't actually heard anything.
Right, so I can respond to that. And I had reached out to your counsel because when I went back and spoke to staff and spoke to my colleague, Jennifer Gray, who has been working with the planning board on this and attending the board meetings, she informed me that she's been in contact at least once a week with your counsel, Adam Stolaro. And I did not realize that that you were represented by counsel, and also there's been some discussions from Adam about litigation. And so when you're represented by counsel and there's also the discussion of litigation, I'm not in a position to speak to you ethically. So I had reached out to Adam and explained that to him in a voicemail message, and he responded acknowledging that and stated and restated your concern. And Jennifer Gray and him have been discussing this on a weekly basis. So they're in their discussions, and Jennifer tells me when I spoke to her today that Adam had sent a letter and she'll be responding to that letter. So I
think I have a problem with your concern about being ethical. So I have had counsel, as you know, over time, because I am quite upset with the way the town handled the construction concept, even for next door, with all these special permits, etc., in a zone that is not zoned for this enormous, quite frankly, your largest project currently. And it is clear that they're so far into the woods that Newcastle has not been on top of paying attention. Hence, these permits, were not handled properly in terms of their renewals. And I do not keep counsel endlessly. It's been very expensive for me to try to do the right thing. So I reached out to you without counsel, did not get satisfaction, and got my counsel back on the line. But I don't know why you can't speak to me directly about what the outcome was.
Because your counsel is having those exact same and direct conversations with my colleague. And I'm not going to have separate conversations, nor can I. I've not been, it's clearly an ethical issue that I'm not allowed to speak to you when you're represented by counsel, especially in a matter where there may be litigation. If you wish to have Adam contact me, I'll be more than happy to discuss that with him. And you should certainly discuss that with him as well.
So the West End gets very little traction in Chappaqua. I don't understand why my concern doesn't indicate the concern of all of my neighbors on the West End. This should be a matter of public record that Newcastle, in fact, gave a permit to my next door neighbor that Newcastle by code should not have done without a public hearing. And that's what I asked you about when I got on a few weeks ago. And there should be an answer to that.
Well, I think there has been with your counsel. I think Jennifer Gray and Adam have been having those discussions. to the extent it's not being, I'll certainly then call at him and convey that to him if he's not fully aware of it.
But don't you think the entire T-Town community deserves an answer?
I think that can certainly be made public, but I'm not going to have that direct conversation with you.
This is not a direct conversation. This is a public conversation during public opportunity to reach out to my representatives.
Well, the prior one was that after you had asked a question, I indicated that I was not familiar with the matter and that I would contact you. It was only then when I became aware you were represented by counsel, so that's why I've not contacted you. And as to the answer to your question, certainly happy to make it part of the public record. It will be, it's all a matter of public record, but I'm not going to engage in a conversation with you, which is what I had told you I would do last time.
Well, I would like to express my true disappointment to the board at your response to me. And certainly I was not the one who created this issue. This was a legal issue, code policy that the town did not pursue correctly. And so to turn it back at me that you're not allowed to speak with me directly, then I have to constantly pay counsel to be able to have a direct conversation with the town about my next door neighbor seems quite inadequate as a response.
Well, but your
Mr.
counsel
Lewis.
is,
I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough. And just to expand on your counsel, again, I'm relating on conversations from Ms. Gray. So if I mischaracterize it, my apologies in advance, but it's my understanding that your counsel has further litigation on this very same issue where you're asking questions about. So
What litigation? We have no litigation. We're asking for answers.
Oh.
And in fact, to be specific, my counsel has said there is no litigation here because he felt that he would get good opportunity to be in front of the planning board, and suddenly that issue was taken off the planning board agenda. And he felt very comfortable that, you know, this would all be worked out. So I don't agree with anything that you're saying here. I'm really disappointed. And honestly, I am in a position where I can afford so much, only so much in terms of litigation, but that is not the way I like to do things. I came to you openly and directly, and I don't understand why you're saying that anyone in the West End with a problem with Sunshine Home who has been in any way involved with litigation, because there are many of us, have to go back to an attorney to get straight answers from the town.
Well,
and
I haven't
spend
said that
much more money doing it.
Right. I haven't said that anyone on the West End. You specifically, I was going to specifically have a discussion with you, and I'm telling you I'm not going to. And I understand these issues have been discussed with your counsel. So it seems like we're being asked the same question by two different people. And we're happy to deal with your counsel. We've done so on this very issue. And I understand these issues and comments were made before your comments 2 weeks ago. So we'll circle back with Mr. Stoller.
And let me express that my counsel, not only is it very expensive for me to have my counsel get involved, but this whole idea of litigation, I have no option but when there is an issue to go through the proper channels to just get answers, right? And have some sort of an acknowledgement that there's a problem here. But from the moment I go through the proper channels, there's 30 days for me to execute litigation. That's always been the problem. We've never gotten answers in an easy way for us to just move along instead of pushing the 30-day button. FYI, the 30-day button is seemingly well over. So why you're talking about litigation, I don't know.
Because the 30-day period hasn't started to run. The 30-day period.
When does it start to run?
It runs from when the decision is filed, when the minutes are filed, or the actual decision itself is filed, which I understand has not occurred.
The decision was voted on. It runs 30 days from the vote.
It does not. With all due respect, you're mistaken. It runs from when the decision is filed with the town clerk's office.
Well, that's interesting news. I appreciate hearing about that particular approach. But I don't appreciate the notion that there isn't more transparency every single time. So thank you very much for letting me have this conversation openly. And I thank the town board for everything that you do.
So seeing no other hands raised, Pam or Terry, I'll just check with you both to see whether we had any questions that came in over YouTube.
No, there aren't any.
And I guess, Lauren, am I going to check with you about whether anything came in over email to public comment?
Yep, no public comments.
Great. Okay, guys, thank you very much. So the next portion of the agenda this evening is our consent agenda. So we have a number of items that are listed on our consent agenda, and before we introduce them, I just want to check with my colleagues on the town board to see whether any of these topics are ones that you would like to move out of the consent agenda and onto our other resolutions. Okay. All right, then I don't know who might have the consent agenda items in front of them. The resolutions.
Yeah, I can. So I move to approve the consent agenda items, adoption of minutes, May 25th, June 1st, 2021, adoption of monthly reports for May, authorization to approve tent rental for recreation, authorization to approve solid waste contract extension for town-owned buildings, authorization to solicit proposals for sludge removal, authorization to reallocate NYSERDA CEC grants to Millwood Park lighting improvements capital project, authorization to extend contract for tree removal, pruning, vertical mulching, stump with Olmsted tree, shrub and lawn care, authorization to extend contract to PKF O'Connor Davies, authorization to award chemical bids, authorization to settle tax certiorari proceedings, 2, authorization to approve tent rental for recreation, authorization to hire camp staff for recreation, authorization to hire community service worker for police, authorization to use town property for Community Day, authorization to set a public hearing on the Westchester County Consortium Community Development Block Grant application fiscal year 2022 to 2024. That's it. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $627,446.70 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail report, both dated June 4th, 2021. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Would you like me to summarize the next one, which is the resolution making a determination and findings under the eminent domain procedure law regarding the proposed acquisition of real property for the extension of the town's DPW and highway garage facility?
Please.
Yes, please.
Yes. So this is a motion for the town to issue a report with respect to the condemnation via the eminent domain procedure law of real property at 220-230 Joan Corwin Way, which was discussed at the work session, more fully detailed in the resolution included in the agenda packet, but makes a determination under the State Environmental Quality Review Act that there's a negative determination, meaning the acquisition of this property will not have a significant adverse environmental impact on the property. Also resolves that after holding the public hearing on March 2nd and March 16th, the town board has made certain findings as detailed in the resolution that I summarize as finding that there is a public purpose to acquiring this property for public use and that it satisfies requirements under the eminent domain procedure law, and resolving that the town board should exercise its power to acquire a property, and additionally that certain notices and procedural steps be taken as detailed in the town board's resolution. This does not, however, take the property. It's just a procedural step whereby you're authorizing those next steps to be taken. The next steps to actually take the property would require legal proceedings. So this is more of a procedural step.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
So just
Wow, I was getting that one going, no, this isn't going to work.
so someone just needs to move that resolution as stated by
Yes.
council.
So I move to adopt this resolution as summarized by council.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Somebody else want to scroll down to the bottom to take the next ones?
Or I just found this, sorry. I move to approve the following salary adjustments effective June 1st, 2021. Christina Papes. I'm sorry, Jim Carroll, Police Chief, $192,780.50. Christina Papes, Town Clerk, Receiver of Taxes, $110,860. Mark Carey, Commissioner of DPW, $176,018.70. Christine Gray, Assistant Superintendent of Recreation and Parks, $100,000. Jill Shapiro, Town Administrator, $184,800.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Thank
I
you,
just
guys.
want to say thank you and acknowledge all 5 of those staff members as well as everyone who works at Town Hall. It's been a difficult year for everyone, and our Town Hall staff have really gone above and beyond. And these 5 individuals were due for a true up in their salary, but everyone has really gone the extra mile over the course of the past year. And so it's nice to be able to recognize these folks and to thank them for their hard work.
Thank you.
I move to authorize the renewal of the town's cyber insurance policy with HDI Specialty Insurance Company for the total cost of $8,803.84 for the period of June 11, 2021 to June 11, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I don't have the, actually, I would really appreciate your help with this one, Nick.
Aren't we done? No?
Yeah,
Was that it?
I'm just going to do the
you have the
anti-Semitism.
anti-Semitism.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
All right. This one's kind of important to me, but whereas anti-Semitism is the centuries-old bigotry and form of racism against Jewish people simply because they are Jews. And whereas in 2019, the Federal Bureau of Investigation reported an increase in hate crimes against Jews or Jewish institutions and found that attacks against them made up 60.3% of all religious-based hate crimes. Whereas in the month of May 2021, there was a terrible and sudden increase in anti-Semitic violence in the United States and around the world. And whereas anti-Semitism includes blaming Jews when things go wrong, calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of racial ideology or extremist views of religion, or making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotyped allegations about Jews. And whereas scapegoating and targeting Jews in the United States have persisted for many years. And whereas accusing Jews of being more loyal to Israel or to the Jewish community than to the United States constitutes anti-Semitism because it suggests that Jewish citizens cannot be patriotic Americans and trusted neighbors when Jews have loyally served our nation every day since its founding, whether in public or community life or military service. And whereas the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance has published a working definition of anti-Semitism, and this definition has been adopted by many international and national organizations, including the United States State Department and the United States Department of Education. And whereas all people of all faiths have a stake in fighting anti-Semitism, just as they have a stake in fighting every form of bigotry and hatred against people based on religion, race, national origin, age, ability, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby rejects the perpetuation of anti-Semitic stereotypes. And it is further resolved that the town board reaffirms the resolution opposing anti-Semitism in solidarity with its neighboring communities that it adopted on January 28th, 2020. And it's further resolved that the town board condemns anti-Semitic acts and statements as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contradictory to the values that define the people of the town of Newcastle. And it's further resolved that the town board acknowledges that anti-Semitism comes in many forms and hereby adopts the definition of anti-Semitism from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance that states, quote, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities," end quote. And is further resolved that the town board hereby rejects attempts to justify hatred or violent acts as an acceptable expression of disapproval or frustration over political events in the Middle East or elsewhere. And it is further resolved that the town board condemns anti-Semitism in all forms without exception and encourages our elected officials, educators, community organizations, houses of worship, and all citizens to work to understand and oppose anti-Semitism to ensure that the town of Newcastle will live up to the principles of diversity, tolerance, religious freedom, and equal protection.
Nice. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa, thank you so much for bringing that resolution to the town board and also for your work with the Holocaust and Human Rights Committee on organizing the event on Sunday. I really appreciate that. And, you know, much like we did the resolution of the pride flag waving last week, and I said to Lori at that time, I'll say to you as well that I think it's really fabulous that we have colleagues on the town board who are pushing us to do the right thing and to be better than we are. And so thank you so much for doing that and being part of this. It's really important.
Welcome.
All good?
Resolution to adjourn, anyone?
So I move to adjourn.
Jeremy's not here. This is what happens.
Second.
Aye. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.